Maybe the most well-known German World War II wonder weapons, apart from the V1 and V2 rockets, are the guided bombs, developed and used in the second part of the war. We have already looked at the henschel HS-293 model not long ago, and today we will dive into the history of the big brother, the SD-1400X, or as most people know this weapon, the Fritz-X. So without further ado, let's begin. Though the guided bombs were first used in numbers in the Second World War, when both sides developed several types, but their history actually started even earlier. Way back in the First World War, when machine guns and rockets just became standard on military aircraft, the engineers already imagined remote-guided weapons launched from airships. First, these guided weapons were tested with scaled models, but closer to the end of the war, full-scale weapons were used as well. These wire-guided aerial torpedoes, though they were used in very small numbers, were the forerunners of the later guided bombs and rockets. During the 1920s and 30s, the guidance systems evolved into more advanced designs, but the remote-controlled weapons didn't receive much attention until the late 1930s. The Wehrmacht only started to show interest in the guided bombs, rockets, and similar weapons around the end of the decade. The shocking inaccuracy of the unguided traditional bombs used in horizontal bombing gave another big boost to the research towards the guided weapons after the war broke out. In traditional bombing, only a few % of the bombs landed near the targets, and when trying to hit a moving ship, the results were even worse. One solution to this inaccuracy was the use of dive bombers, like the Ju-87 Stuka or the HS-123 ground attack aircraft. But these planes usually lack the range and payload to be used effectively against heavily armored targets. If you'd like to know more about these aircraft, I have already made videos on their history, so check them out. The other solution, as you probably guessed, was the introduction of the guided weapons. The heart of these weapons, of course, was the guiding system. In Germany, the work on a military solution started in the second half of the 1930s in secret. The development was divided between several companies, like Telefunken, Lorenz, Siemens, and others, to conceal the goal of the work as much as possible. In January 1940, a meeting was held between all the developers, which led to the so-called Kehl-Strasberg program. The end result of this program were the FUG-203 radio transmitter, named Kehl, and the FUG-230 receiver, called Strasberg. These devices were used in most German guided bombs during the war, and worked very well, though they were sensitive to harsh weather or jamming. With the lead of Dr. Max Kramer, a team at the DWL already experimented with glide bombs since 1938. And after successful trials, the further development of the project was given a green light by the authorities. The work on the new bombs, then just called X1, began in 1939. The base of the new design was the PC-1400 armor-piercing bomb, which in the new plans was fitted with a new more aerodynamic nose cone, a gyroscope for stabilization, 4 wings in X configuration, and a rectangular tail section, which housed the control surfaces and the radio antenna. It was guided through the earlier mentioned Kehl-Strasberg control device. The vertical fin on the tail worked as a rudder, while the horizontal fins featured 2 sets of spoilers, the inboard ones working as elevators, the outboard ones as roll control. The control surfaces were operated by solenoids and oscillated rapidly during the flight. This seemingly complicated setup ensured the trajectory was smooth and controlled, which was easy to follow for the operator, who used a standard lofted bomb sight. These bombs, similarly to the HS-293 design, featured a flare to make them more visible. The maximum corrections the operator was able to influence the flight were usually 500 meters adjustment in range and 350 meters to the sides. Contrary to the rocket-powered HS-293, which had a longer flight time, speed, and range, these bombs required more precise release and controls. The bomber had to maintain course and slow down after release, so the operator could keep the weapon in sight all times. It was not recommended to release below 5,000 meters, but optimally it should be dropped from 6,000 meters or higher, so the bomber could remain outside of the anti-aircraft fire. The first prototypes of the weapon were ready by 1942, and during the trials it was found a skilled operator can land around 50% of the bombs in 15 meters of the target, and 90% of the bombs in 30-meter radius. This compared to traditional bombing was phenomenal accuracy. The bombs were planned to be used on the new HG-177 bombers, but since that type was very troublesome and suffered delays, other planes were considered. They were tested on the HG-111 bombers, but in the end they were mostly used from the DO-217 type. If you're interested in the history of these German bombers, I have already made videos on most of them. Check them out on the channel, or find the link in the description of this video. Though the Fritz-X had several more advanced variants planned, only the original X1 was used in combat. The X2 featured aerodynamic improvements, increasing its velocity to 320 meters a second. The planned X3 variant had different wing surfaces and tail, and in theory it could have reached close to sonic speeds during its fall. The X5 and 6 were planned to be larger versions of the bomb, weighing around 2.5 tons, compared to the 1.5 ton weight of the original design. The Allies realized the danger these weapons posed, so the development of jamming devices was underway by 1942. The first attempts did not work very well, but later ones became increasingly successful, especially after the Allies captured different unexploded bombs, bombers equipped with the control system, and when they captured the Foggia airfield in Italy, a number of brand new Fritz-X and HS-293 bombs. The Fritz-X was a big weapon, 3.26 meters long, with a wingspan of 1.35 meters. It weighed 1,570 kilograms and carried a warhead of 320 kilograms. It used the Carl Strasberg FUG-203 and 230 guidance system and had a range of around 5 kilometers. Unlike the smaller HS-293, the Fritz-X was designed against heavily armored targets, and it could pierce around 130 mm of armor. I have a separate video about the history of the HS-293 guided bomb, so if you would like to know more about that weapon, check it out. These bombs were first used in July 1943, but the first raids were unsuccessful, so the Allies were actually unaware that the Germans used new guided weapons during these attacks. The first big success for these weapons came after Italy signed the armistice with the Allies in September the same year. As agreed, all the ships of the Italian Navy had to sail to Allied-controlled ports to be interned. The three modern Italian battleships, Italia, Roma, and Vittorio Veneto, sailed to Algeria on the 9th of September to comply with the terms of the armistice. But the Germans had no intentions to allow the Allies to take over such a powerful force. 6 DO-217s armed with the new Fritz-X bombs flew to intercept the ships. This time the attack was successful. A Fritz-X hit the battleship Roma first and severely damaged it. A few minutes later, a second bomb hit exploded the magazine, and the ship sank not long after. The battleship Italia was hit by 2 bombs as well, but she was more lucky than her sister ship. One Fritz-X passed through the ship's side and exploded in the water. Another one again exploded close to the ship, but only caused minor damage, and Italia managed to continue under her own steam. The damage to the ship still shows how powerful these bombs were, as the bomb passing through the decks and side and exploding in the water left a 7 by 6 meters wide gaping hole in the battleship. In the following days the bombs were used again, now against the Allied forces landing in Italy. A bomb was aimed at the USS Philadelphia, barely missing it, and exploded around 15 meters from the ship. Its sister ship, Savannah, was not as lucky, as a Fritz-X scored a direct hit, penetrating one of the turrets and exploding inside the ship. Savannah lost 197 men and was seriously damaged, but didn't sink. 2 days later, the cruiser HMS Uganda was hit. Luckily, the bomb passed through the hull and exploded in the water. Uganda was out of action, but managed to stay afloat. On 16th of September, a Fritz-X hit the battleship HMS Warspite, exploding in the boiler room. Despite the serious damage and taking in almost 5,000 tons of water, Warspite only lost 12 sailors. She was back in action next year, supporting the Normandy landings. The bombers carrying these weapons soon had to abandon their attacks in light of the growing Allied air superiority, as they became increasingly vulnerable and their losses started to mount. By 1944, when the Allies landed in Normandy, these guided bombs were near useless, as the Allies had an unprecedented number of fighters defending the fleet. Not to mention they fitted the newest jamming equipment on more than 100 ships by that time. These weapons, as advanced as they were, had less and less use after they appeared, as Germany was already on the defensive, and though they paved the way for the modern glide bombs, and creating them showed great skill and ingenuity, they were too little too late, just like the other advanced German weapons of World War II. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please leave a like, subscribe to my channel, and in the comments let me know if there's any interesting events or vehicles you'd like to see.